say 99% of stuff that's being put out in the Western media about this country and about political things in this country and women in this country and women's sport in this country, it's just not true. It's different, of course it's different, but overall the culture here, I mean, what I would say is from day one, the locals, the staff that we work with, the local staff, everybody is so friendly, so welcoming, so happy.
Myles Smith has served as an assistant manager at Ittihad Club in Jeddah, Saudi Arabia. Playing a pivotal role in steering the club's management and strategic direction, Myles has made a substantial contribution to the Saudi football landscape. Before joining Ittihad Club, Myles has had valuable experiences in the football industry, working at Manchester United and West Ham United in England. Now based in the Middle East, Myles brings his wealth of experience and expertise to significantly contribute to the success of Saudi Arabia and football. His relocation underscores Myles' dedication to fostering the growth and advancement of the game, particularly within the Saudi context. Now on this podcast, Myles discusses his journey of moving to Saudi Arabia, shedding light on the evolving landscape of women's football and the journey he has taken. He shares experiences into the unique aspects of the football scene and draws comparisons between the football environment in the Middle East and Europe. So the female game, how did that become an influence on you and how did you immerse yourself in that sector?
It sort of came to me. I was working at West Ham Men's Academy at the time with the under-23 team. My tutor, so I had two tutors really, one called Karim Tayara, who's out in Dubai at the moment, Abu Dhabi, and one called Greg Dekanis, and they really took me under their wing when I was working at West Ham with the academy as I say, as a sports scientist. Then at the time, Greg went across to the women's team. I think he was 13 years in the men's academy, did an unbelievable job there, overseeing the elite performance department. I did a great job with a lot of world-class players that we see in the men's game today. But then he went across to the women's team. Similar to me, really. He was just, I don't want to say a wasted sports scientist because he was unbelievable at what he did, but coaching was his real, where his skills really were and his passion. So when the job got offered to be the West Ham women's manager, he took it. I was sort of back in Leeds at the time, finishing off my degree, while sort of making the trip to London every now and then, a couple of times a week to work for West Ham here and where I could really. But he asked me to go with him, told me to finish my degree off, which I already had probably about a month or so left. The timing was really nice. And asked me to go with him to support him with the women's team at West Ham. And so that's sort of how I fell into it really. And to be honest, I've not looked back since. It's been an unbelievable journey in the women's game. And at the time, the WSL in England was reshaping, reforming. It was a really exciting time to be a part of it. Greg ended up leaving. New manager came in, Matt Beard, who also again sort of took me under his wing. Kept me on and asked me to work with him. And that's when we were sort of really becoming, we just entered the WSL as West Ham, first time ever. So it's a lot of changes going on at the club. Obviously, Jack Sullivan was our director. Obviously, his parents owned the club, his family owned the club. So it was a really exciting time. And yeah, being a part of that project was something that I always look back to. We almost had a bit of a blank canvas, and that was nice in a way. We had an unbelievable, ambitious project at the time, and a bit of a blank canvas to paint what we wanted on there, and we did an unbelievable job. In all seriousness, we FA Cup final and had some good seasons within the league, and it was a brand new squad that got put together. So yeah, Matt deserves a lot of credit for that. But yeah, that's sort of how I came into women's football and what brings me here.
So for those that don't know you, Myles, you mentioned your journey from West Ham and then kind of learning. Can you just inform your journey from that period, as you kind of alluded to the Middle East and how that came about, that transition, just for those that want to maybe be intrigued and inspired by how you've got to the position that you're in now?
Yeah, of course. I think everybody, as I said, everybody's journey is different. I was fortunate enough, as I say, to work in elite sport. Really, it was one of my first real jobs in sport. what you normally find is quite a linear pathway, you know, where people may start working at a grassroots level, and then they find themselves in an academy, and they potentially work through the age groups in an academy, and depending on what route they want to go, potentially find themselves in the first team at some stage. But I was very fortunate and lucky to step into the professional world really early on. I actually worked in rugby to start with, doing some strength and conditioning and sports science. But I think whilst I was at university, I just tried to find ways to make myself a little bit different. You know, there was, I don't know, I always used to figure 9,000, but there was X amount of students that was graduating with the same degree as what I had just at Leeds Beckett University, let alone every university around the world. So I tried to sort of quite early spend a lot of my energy and my time, of course, on the academics, but trying to find ways of getting out there and making myself different, filling my CV up, filling my experience up. So, as I say, started off in rugby with Leeds Rhinos and Castleford Tigers, but that's not my sport. I had to learn quite quickly, learn the rules and all the rest of it. And obviously wanted to be in football, so sort of applied for an internship at West Ham, took a year out of my university degree. And again, I remember when I was at West Ham, I remember walking in on day one as a sports science intern. I think there was 3 other sports science interns. There was probably around about 9 analyst interns. I think there's a few coaching interns as well. So you're surrounded by interns, and you sort of, again, on day one, I was sort of thought to myself, right, what can I do to make myself different from the other interns, but also to try and not just have a year's internship at the end of this and thank you very much, you know, you've got some great experience. I wanted a job. I wanted a job at the end of it, and I wanted to try and do everything that I could possibly do to get a job. So that's what I did, really. Put in every hour that I could possibly put in. Look to get involved in every department. Look to learn as much as I can. Look to build relationships with everybody that I possibly could. And I got the reward at the end of it, you know. So that was my time at West Ham. I think I was with the boys or involved in some capacity for probably around about 3 to 4, maybe 3.5 seasons. Worked with some really great athletes there. Some, you know, England internationals that we see today. To players that are playing in Premier League, Championship, League 1, League 2. And it's great because I'm still in touch with them all, you know. So it's nice to have those relationships with the players, and, you know, they still say thank you today. I played a really small part, but, you know, it's all great people, and I think that's what brings me the most reward, that we developed great people as well as great footballers. So then, as I say, went across to the women's team, and worked at a semi-professional level with West Ham for a season. I think probably halfway through the season, Greg left, so sort of took on the interim role as the manager, and we had a really successful end to the season. I don't think we lost a game, and we ended up winning the league. We won the FA Plate. So we had a really successful season there. And to, again, kind of got thrown into things, to be thrown into that interim role straight away without really being ready or prepared. But, you know, it teaches you a lot, and you get a lot of vital experience from it. And then obviously Jack came in and made it all professional and managed to survive and work under Matt. Obviously someone who's extremely experienced in the women's game. Worked with him, again, maybe 3 or 4 seasons. Learned a lot from him, you know, working alongside him very closely. He was great, fantastic person, really cares about his staff. And I remember when he left the club, he gave me a phone call and said, listen, you're going to be a top coach one day. You know, keep doing what you're doing. And obviously at the time, you just think those are nice words and things like that. But he gave me a lot of advice and information on that same phone call. And it's sort of things that I'm sort of seeing now as I'm, you know, stepped into a new environment, if you like.
Give us some insight on how that works, at that process of you working at Man United, and then all of a sudden you're getting phone calls, you're getting interest from clubs other side of the world in the Middle East. Talk to me about that, because obviously the reason I ask that, and the reason I stopped you is very much, there might be people that are listening or watching that are intrigued by the growth of sport globally and these opportunities in other countries. Just talk to me about how it happens and some of the things that you have to be aware of during that transition.
Yeah, of course. To be honest with you, I don't think I can give great insight because it was completely random. And look, if I'm being completely honest, I didn't really know much about football in Saudi Arabia. It was at the time when it was blowing up with Benzema going and Jota going, and Ronaldo obviously had just been. So you hear all the headline stories, but I didn't know anything about women's football in Saudi Arabia. So as I said, I was happy working at United. Hadn't been there too long. And Nick is a guy that I'd worked with in the past, again, sort of building connections. He was helping Greg, who brought me in at West Ham. He was helping him to get a role out in Asia many years ago. And Greg asked me to go with him, and Nick was the one that was sorting it all out. It ended up falling through. But I hadn't spoken to Nick for probably about two years, maybe 3 years. And as I say, he just rang me completely out of the blue, asking if I'd be interested. So I listened. We had a call for probably over a couple of hours, and I listened, and it sounded interesting. I think at that first phone call, it sounded interesting, and I wanted to know more. He explained everything that's happening in Saudi Arabia and women's football at the moment, which I'm sure we'll get onto. But yeah, I think spoke to the board, spoke to a woman called Haya, part of the management team, and a man called Abdulaziz, part of the management team here. And I think right from the very first call that we had, the passion that they showed for not only Ittihad and the women's club at Ittihad, but women's football in general in this region, it was inspiring. I just remember just feeling a bit shocked and a little bit sort of like, I can't believe that they've managed to pull my leg away from my boyhood club here. But I knew straight away that they had, and they almost had me straight away. And it was a little bit, it's almost like I didn't want to admit it at first. You know, I was almost trying to think of reasons that maybe I should stay at Man United. It's Man United, right? It's the best club in the world. But yeah, I think whenever I look at a project, whenever I get off the job, for me, it's about who am I surrounded by? You know, what is the potential of this project? What is the passion with the people I'm going to be working with, and what can we make this be? You know, is it the potential? Is it ambitious? Have we got the potential to make this something world class? And we do, and we did when they spoke to me. So that's what sort of tore me away. But in terms of that transition, as I say, it was, I think, look, you can say it's random, but it comes from many years of doing those little bits, speaking to people, forming relationships with people, doing well in previous jobs that you've had. So you've got a good CV and a good word of mouth. People are speaking about you, working above and beyond the call of duty in every role that you're in, for every person that you work with. I think it's not random. That's where it comes from. Many years of that. But you don't know that when you just get a call one random Wednesday night, you know? So, yeah, I think it's probably come from all of the past and the people I've worked with and the people I've spoken to and stuff like that. But yeah, it did feel very random at the time.
So is there an interview process within that transition then? Obviously, geographically, that could be a challenge from a practical sense to demonstrate your skills and competencies on the pitch. Obviously, there's a sense of trust for you. You know, you mentioned networking and getting to understand opportunities and getting to network with people and showing your skills via that way. What's the process in terms of getting the role then? Is there an interview process? Is there a formal chat? Is there an informal chat? I'm just interested on how that process happened for you to go, okay, it's time to maybe take the leap and try something new. Talk to me about that.
Yeah, it's I think it's a little bit different to a job that you'd take in the UK, because, you know, you see the job advert and you read the job spec and you have a good insight as to what it entails. For this job at Ittihad, I think it was a little bit of both. So I think it started off with a few informal conversations and almost like I was interviewing them, you know, asking what the project's about, where they want to take it. So it was very much the first few phone calls. We had probably around 25, 30 phone calls, by the way. But yeah, the first few phone calls were very much about them letting me know what I'm I'm coming to, which I really appreciated, because I could see it wasn't a sales pitch. I could see it was genuine, and it showed that they cared. They really, really took their time to explain everything and answer every single question that I had thoroughly, before then trying to go to the next stage, which was them finding out about me, and seeing if I was the right person for them. So I think it's a bit of both. Was this project the right thing for me? And then once we thought that it was, am I the right person for them? And I think, look, Jobs for Football and Nick get a lot of credit for that, because they were the ones. Nick almost had, from what I understand, he had control and certainly a massive influence on the people that got the roles. He was tasked with the job of bringing the people in to the club. So when he rang me, I don't want to say that I had the job already, because that's certainly not the case, but you're almost put in a very good position from the start, if that makes sense. So yeah, once they discussed with me the project and the plans, then it was over to me, and like you're doing interviews, trying to say what you can bring. And it just seemed to really fit really well. The club's philosophy, where they want to go, the direction they want to head in, aligned really well with my own individual philosophy and what I see important within football, within women's football, and within just, in life itself. So yeah, there was numerous phone calls, and then it comes down to, obviously, the last few phone calls are your contract talks and contract negotiations, getting all that finalised and tidied up. And then once it was all done, it was in place, as a group of staff. Once we got brought together, obviously we had myself, we had the head coach, goalkeeper coach, sports scientist, head of medical, who were international staff, as well as the local staff that were already there. We had, again, 10 to 15 Zoom calls before we arrived, getting things ready, working on our recruitment strategy, all the things that go into getting the project started, really. So it was a lot of calls. But as I said, from day one, I was pretty sold on it.
And with that, obviously, relocation, you mentioned contracts, etc. I'm interested, is there support with that relocation? Is there a somewhere for you to stay, or do you have to go and find that yourself, or is there a period of you becoming embedded into the culture? I'm just interested in how they supported you within that.
Yeah, no, I think this is where hire Abdulaziz and Nick deserve massive amounts of credit. Everything we seen, it was so we were put at ease right from the start, before taking the role, what we were going to be given, what was included in the contract. And honestly, from the minute that they did everything for us, our flights were booked for us, our visas were sorted for us. When we landed, they was there at the airport to meet us. We got some Ittihad merchandise. They had mobile phones ready for us. We got taken straight to a hotel, a really nice hotel, and we stayed there for the first 3 weeks. And then our apartments were ready. So we're all now in apartments. There's 3 of us that live in the same block, all different apartments, but the same block. And then two others that live in a different place, different block. But everything, this is where Haya and Abdulaziz and Nick, we are looked after so well. Anything we need, we've been given cars, all your driving licenses and stuff sorted. I think they do everything they possibly can to make sure that we can try and focus on our jobs. And yeah, everything that we've asked for, everything that we need, everything that, I guess that we've requested, they've given it to us. And they've done it efficiently, and we couldn't really have asked for much more, to be honest. Now, I don't think that's the case in every environment, if I'm honest. I'd never worked abroad. This is the first time I've worked abroad, but I've heard stories, not in Saudi Arabia necessarily, but any countries and any other country. And I don't think people have been as lucky as what we have. So I don't want people to listen to this and think it's all sunshine and rainbows everywhere. I think, as I said, it comes down to a little bit of luck again. But yeah, we've been really looked after.
Just on that, so obviously the perception of Saudi Arabia can be challenged from Western media and Western society. Has that surprised you in terms of the opportunity to embed yourself into the culture and having a little bit more of a luxury lifestyle and being supported with that? And I say luxury lifestyle, but you're supported in comparison to maybe getting a job at another football club in the UK. better, if that makes sense. So I'm just interested on, has it surprised you at all, or is there anything that you've thought of in a positive sense that could be challenged from the the perception of what others say about the country, as well as the football surge that's happening there at the moment?
Yeah, extremely surprised, I guess, is the word to use, as you've just used yourself. I think before coming here, I was, to be honest, like most people in the Western world, I was quite ignorant. I used to read the headlines, I used to read the news, I used to look on Twitter, and everything you read is quite negative, and you just take it, you just think it's true, and you just almost a bit brainwashed by it. You don't really question it. In the world that we live in today, you read it and you flick onto the next thing, or you flick onto the next article, or you open Instagram or whatever. You read it and then that's it. You of course you question things, but I think, look, coming here, I've said this before. I don't want to use the word everything, but I'd say 99% of stuff that's being put out in the Western media about this country and about political things in this country and women in this country and women's sport in this country, it's just not true. It's just not true. And being here has been eye-opening. It's been, you almost feel a little bit sad, for people, for both sides, for the country itself, although they don't, they take it with a pinch of salt. They're so used to it. I've spoke to local people and they're so used to these headlines that get written about them and know they aren't true. It doesn't affect them anymore, which in itself is quite sad, I guess it's, when you just become numb to it. But also sad for the Western world that there's all of these things that are being written and being put out there and people are believing that aren't true. So it's one of those where you're not going to know, and you don't really know until you're here. And I think that will change because of the great things that this country is doing, and will continue to do, and will achieve what they're set out to achieve. And then it'll come to light. You can see already at the moment how football's taking off here. Saudi 2030 vision, women in sport here, women's right, everything. And people are starting to hear about that, but only just, so it's going to take time. But as I said to you, it's I was one of those people. I must admit, I was ignorant to what actually happens here versus what's written in the headlines, and I would just encourage anybody really to find out for themselves, or to not just take everything as literal, because it's honestly not true. It's a great place with great ambition, and as I said to you, I'm confident that they will achieve what they want to achieve here.
I think it's a range of things. There's a sense of insecurity potentially from the West because of the financial opportunities Saudi Arabia are offering. And also, I think as well, if you think about, the past of its human rights record and everything that's associated with that, and now there's a new kind of Vision 2030 and trying to move on from that past, it kind of lingers still. And I think that perception is still apparent within that outlook towards the Middle East and the surrounding countries, Qatar and Dubai, etc., and how that perception is trying to change. Now, that leads on to my next question around your role within the women's game. Obviously, as mentioned, women's rights have been a challenge previously in Saudi Arabia, and how that is tried to be modified, and the outlook towards that has differed in more recent times. From your perspective, working as a coach within the female game, what is it like for you in terms of that cultural perception and that opportunity to improve women's football? Because obviously there's a surge in the men's, but also there's an attempt to bring a parallel with that through the women's game and the opportunities within that. How is that for you from a cultural point of view to enable those opportunities to transpire?
Yeah, and as I said previously, it's one of the reasons that it's so rewarding working in women's football, is because that you're part of this evolution of making the sport better, but with that making people's lives better, and giving opportunity to a lot of people. And whereas I was doing that in England, and I'm now trying to do that around the world, in a different country. And similar, to be honest, very similar as to what I found myself in England, with that blank canvas and the ability to put whatever colour that we think is right on the canvas. Well, I'm able to do that now. I think It's one of the main reasons I came, was to be able to try and positively impact people's lives through football. Obviously, look, the football side of things speaks for itself. We want to come here, we want to win every game, we want to win the league, win the cup, we want to try and do everything. But there's a side piece that comes with it that you're sort of almost doing alongside your coaching, and that's trying to create opportunities for people, trying to improve people's lives. But at the same time, you know, what I've realised here is when you're doing that in England, I'm from England, you know, so I know the culture, I know the country, I know everything about it. When you're doing that here, it's sometimes I question myself, who am I to say how to better someone's life, if that makes sense? Obviously there's the obvious stuff, but this is a completely different culture. It's a completely different place. They do things differently. So, you know, you almost have to at the same time question, well, I don't want to force my impact as to what I think is right. But look, as long as I'm here and there's the players that I'm working with are happy, enjoying their sport, getting different opportunities through football, or we're inspiring the next generation, anything I can do to help support women's football in Saudi Arabia is what I want to do. So yeah, it's as I said, it's similar to what I found myself in England, just in a different country.
How have you found the culture in general? Obviously, in comparison to the UK, the weather's obviously a lot different, but, you know, no alcohol, for example, you know, religious days, the working week's different. Tell me about, you know, how have you adapted to that, and is it better? Again, from your subjective point of view, I'm interested on its comparison to maybe the lifestyle in Europe, etc. How is it for you in terms of, you know, your social life and social activities, etc.?
It's different. Of course it's different. But overall, the culture here, I mean, what I would say is from day one, the locals, the staff that we work with, the local staff, everybody is so friendly, so welcoming, so happy. Like they're just, in the UK, we have this, it sounds like I hate the UK. I really don't, I promise, I love it. But it's, in the UK, we have this, like, people have this perception of us that, look, we're grumpy and we work too hard and we moan about everything, and like that, it's almost the opposite here, you know. People can obviously see that I'm an international, and whether you go to the shop or anything, they want to help you. They want to help you with your bags, with your trolley. They want to help you get out your car. They want to help you go back to your car. Like, they just love it that you're here, and they love it that you're giving the country an opportunity and a chance. And, you know, you've come here yourself. And again, it goes back to what we said before. You've come here to find out for yourself. And I think a lot of people respect that you're here helping. So the culture is, yeah, it's the people are amazing. In terms of the days, that's been a little challenging. Everything happens in the evening here. So whereas in the UK, I was very much a morning type of person. Here, you know, a lot of people don't start their days till maybe 1 p.m. And especially in the summer, you know, due to the heat. So everything's done in the evening. We train in the evening. We're probably staying up every evening till sort of 2 a.m. And then you start again your day at 1 p.m. So it's been a little bit different in that aspect. But yeah, it's very similar to, I think everybody is always searching for this, like, story, and like, what's it like? Is it completely different out there? And is all you see is sand and all the rest of it? Like, it's very much like that, like the Western world. It's got a massive American influence on it, I feel, in terms of the restaurants, and like the cafes and the takeaways and all the rest of it. There's a lot of American restaurants here that I've never heard of. So it's got a touch on that. The cars that people drive, it's got that sort of American touch, if you like. But yeah, people go out, they'll drink coffee, they go out to eat, there's activities to do. It's very similar to England. I think obviously the main difference that us Brits would moan about is that you can't drink, but that's making me healthier and allowing me to do a lot more activity myself. So there's pros and cons for that one.
There's a lot of negativity with alcohol, and I suppose there's an appreciation of life more, I think, removing alcohol and celebrating culture and building relationships up with people differently rather than, the traditional being in a pub or being in a club. I think it's interesting how that's opened your eyes, and I think it's a skill. It's not a skill really, but it's an awareness that you'd probably appreciate later in life, if that makes sense. Would you agree?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I listened to one of your podcast episodes only the other day around alcohol. And yeah, I think, listen, it is a skill. I mean, my brother's going to kill me for having this conversation. He owns quite a few bars and pubs back in our hometown. So I'm not doing him much favour, to be honest with you. But no, listen, it is, like you say, in England, we go out with the mates. We go out with our mates, we go to the pub. We go out on a date, we end up going for a drink. It's raining, we'll go and sit in a pub. It's sunny, we'll go sit in a beer garden. Which, listen, I am not knocking. It's good fun, all the rest of it. But as you say, you end up socialising the majority of your time with alcohol in your system. And there's certainly a lot of people I know that are almost, what's the word I'm looking for, like, they can't socialise, are socially awkward without having a drink in their system, So... just because they're so used to it, so it teaches you those things. And look, in terms of productivity and all the mental health positives and the positives that not having alcohol in your system for a long time can bring, I'm certainly feeling all the effects of them. That is for sure.
So if I bring you back to the footballing side, then Myles, and again, a subjective answer to a subjective question, but is there longevity here? Is there a long-term plan? Because, again, looking at the European model, it's been there for, nearly up to 100 years now. When you think of the traditional football clubs, you mentioned Man United and football clubs that you support. And then if you look at more recent developments within sport, you see China and that how that's gone. And then now you see the surge with Saudi Arabia, obviously the women's game as well. What's your thoughts on the longevity of it? Is this a long-term plan that where you see yourself in the next 20 to 30 years, or is it short term? I'm just interested on where you think this will go, because again, it's the $1 million question that everyone in England and across Europe want to know on what's actually happening and how will it succeed.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, I think to answer the question, to start with, it 100% has the potential to be one of the top women's leagues in world football. We're seeing that push for it in the men's league at the moment, and I think it's got the potential to do it in the men's league as well. But obviously, I'll speak on behalf of the women's leagues because that's what I see every day. But yeah, it's definitely got the potential. The ambition is definitely there. Obviously, the financial backing is there, which is a big struggle in a lot of women's football around the world. And I think that it wouldn't surprise me, within the next 3 to 5 to 7 years, if this is regarded as one of the top 3 leagues. I think you only have to look at the amount of players that it's attracting already in this short amount of time that it's been running. This is its second year being full-time professional. And it's first year, really, that I think so many international foreign staff and players have come in. And I've said this previously, like, my phone is... People are contacting me every week, every fortnight, asking about it, asking what it's like, asking if there's potential for them to come out here. I've got people ringing me and being direct. I want to get out there. Do you want to sign me? And I'm talking some of the best players in the world in women's world football. Not somebody that is getting on and retired, not somebody that is playing in the 2nd or 3rd or 4th division. I'm talking the highest level of women's football at the peak of their careers. I pick up the phone and asking the questions. So obviously it's attracting people at the moment, and I don't think that's going to stop. And I think the refreshing thing is everybody not everybody, but the majority of people that I've spoken to, they want to be here for other reasons. So instantly everybody's thoughts when they listen to things like this is, well, it's attracting people because of the money. You know, that's what everybody says. Everybody said it when some of the men have gone out there, and it's the money. That's, you know, they're taking a banknote. But everybody that I've spoken to, I can see is genuinely invested or wants to be invested more than the salary. They want to come and impact, better the lives of people out here. They want to come and play in this league. And, you know, I've had some conversations whereby players have been willing to take pay cuts to come out here. And I think that you know, that's proof that it's not just about the money. So to answer your question, yeah, it's going to be massive. Everybody wants to be a part of it. As I said, players ringing me. I've got people that I've worked with that I've not spoken to for 10 years that sort of message you and, oh, hi, how are you? And you know what's coming. You know, they want to be a part of it. Journalists, different articles, different podcasts want to know about it. So it's not going anywhere, and it's only getting bigger. And I think everybody can see that this is the time to be a part of it, because if you're not a part of it now, you might miss the boat. So yeah, massive potential. The right people around it, the people at SAF are doing a great job of trying to promote this and to get it to where it wants to be. All the people within the clubs are doing a great job, and you can just see there's a real buzz around the whole of the country around women's football here. There's a buzz about it. And like I said, I've finished training at 11 p.m. in the evening. I'll go to the supermarket with my Ittihad kit on, and people go crazy. You know, they'll do your shopping for you and, oh, Ittihad, and then they'll ask you about Benzema. And then when you say you work for the women's teams, they're like, you know, the women's team's like, how are you doing? How are you getting on? And you could be stood there for 15, 20 minutes having a chat with them because they're so invested and want to know about it. In England, a lot of the people you're saying, as soon as you say the women's team, oh, you know, thanks, have a nice day type of thing. Not everyone, don't get me wrong. It's also evolving great in England as well, but it's a little bit tongue in cheek. But you understand what I'm trying to say. So yeah, listen, the potential's there, the ambition's there. And obviously the financial backing that the federations put in, that the leagues put in, it's all there. All the ingredients are there to make an unbelievable recipe, and I think it's gonna be great.
In terms of that, then, so what's your viewpoints on the standard of play? So obviously you've come from the UK, you're in a different league, different climate, weather's different, training regimes are different. How have you found that in terms of how you can adopt maybe your philosophy or your playing style to a certain way, but also at the same time you have to maybe adapt to certain things because of the environment that you're in and the individuals that you might be coaching? How have you found that as a whole?
Yeah, it's a really good question. I think, look, in any environment, whether it's going from a club to club in the same country, you're working with different players, you're working with different individuals, you have a different boss that you have to report to, you've got different constraints, environmental constraints everywhere. So I, for one, believe there is no copy and paste model out there. I don't think you can do it. So certainly haven't tried to copy and paste things that I've done just because I've worked at West Ham and Man United, because it wouldn't work. I'm working with different players. As you said, I'm working in a different place, a different culture. These players need something very different. So the level is developing. We've got a lot of national team players. They've just gone on camp, and we're proud of them every single day. They are the first cohort of players that are representing the national team, you know, in women's football, and that comes with a big responsibility and a bit of pressure, you know, and a lot of them are quite young, but they've got the potential to be unbelievable players. They really have. We've got players here that I've never heard of previously, and I'm working with them now, and they could be WSL players. They could play if there wasn't all the rules and regulations. They could play in the WSL. They could play in the women's championship in England, the top 2 leagues in England. So the players are out there. It's just that nobody sees them or knows about them. But listen, it's not the same level as it is in England. Of course it's not, because it's only just started and it is developing. But in terms of the way we tried to do things, I think we've laid a good foundation. You have to adapt. We couldn't come in here and get things kicked off straight away and implement everything all at once, because it would have been extremely overwhelming. It would have been too much, from a physical perspective, but also just from an overwhelming perspective. So we've tried to drip feed little things in, like trying to get the gym programs up and running properly, trying to make sure that the sports science department's implementing good nutrition protocols, good recovery protocols, trying to make sure that on the field as coaches we are creating and designing and delivering a philosophy that the players are capable of, because it's not only the technical ability that's developing, it's the tactical ability, it's the tactical knowledge and awareness as well. So you can't come to a place and have this unbelievable Pep Guardiola master plan if your players don't understand it. So your plan is only as good as the players that are able to understand and execute it. So it's what I would say is it's extremely refreshing and rewarding to work with the group of players that we're working with, because they are so eager and so hungry to learn. Not just once or not just a session here and there. Every time you open your mouth, they are dialed in, tuned into what you're saying. 1 extra sessions every single week, 1 extra individual development sessions. When I compare it to some players that you work with in other places, that sometimes players think they know it all, and sometimes they believe that they don't need these answers or don't believe these are the right answers. Or listen, of course, everyone's got an opinion and that's allowed, but the players here are just so eager to get better, so hungry to learn, so hungry to develop, and working with that type of character every day as a coach it's a dream come true. It's a dream come true, to be honest with you. They're the types of characters that you want, and to have a squad full of them. Normally you find 1 or 2, but to have a squad full of them is, you don't hear of it. And again, it comes back to the culture. It comes back to the culture and how people are here.
How does the football club then, as an entity, and obviously we mentioned kind of the cultural differences, how does it combat maybe the negative image that it has around, females and participation within, activity from a female perspective? Is there anything that this kind of set out as a philosophy and an agenda, away from the pitch, that is important to, Ittihad as well as the other football clubs, as well as, the regional area of the Middle East, to try and raise awareness of more equality within the female game? Is there anything that you've come across? I'm just interested if there is that.
Yeah, I think, as I said to you before, some of the stories that get written about this place, they almost push it off. They're quite strong-minded. They're just quite numb to it. So I don't think they've got a point to prove to anyone. I don't think that's what they're trying to do. I think they know that they're trying to do the right thing, and doesn't necessarily need shouting to the world. The world will hear of it just from natural, just through the natural things that they're doing and implementing. But yeah, it's very similar. SAFA, very similar to what the FA were trying to do and still are trying to do, and increase participation, making sure that there's opportunities in as many different places as possible for young girls to play. Making sure that the league is a fully professional, full-time league, making sure that the resources are there, making sure that players and staff and clubs have got everything they need in place to make a professional football environment run how it typically looks, if you like. So I think, look, they've got their vision, and as I say, everybody at SAF is sort of running and doing a great job of making that vision come to life. But I don't think they try to throw it in people's faces. I think that's going to happen, and people are going to see it and recognise it, because they are doing some really, really great work.
What does the future hold for you then, Myles? So obviously relocated, we talked about the development in the Middle East, development of Saudi Arabia, the men's, the women's. What does it look like for you in terms of your outlook? And obviously it's hard to pinpoint because you mentioned in the conversation that you got a phone call randomly and it enabled you to, move to Saudi Arabia and travel with work. Well, is there anything that you've set out that might see the development of sport where you're at, but also maybe your goals and objectives going forward? I'm just interested in what your journey might look like.
Yeah, well, it's football, so you never know, right? The results determine where I'll end up, whether it's in Saudi or whether it's somewhere else. And that's football. That's what we get ourselves into, and we sign contracts. But listen, if I could have it my way, I have absolutely, completely fell in love with this project. Fell in love with the club. Fell in love with the people I'm working for, the people I'm working with, the players I'm working with. Absolutely fell in love with it. So for me, at the moment, short to medium term, I don't see myself being anywhere else. If I'm lucky enough to be here for 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 more seasons, then great. I think my personal objectives are, I want to come here and I want to dominate the Saudi league, the Saudi Women's League. It's going to take time. We're a brand new staff. We've got a brand new group. But I want to win that league year upon year. I want to win the cup year upon year. I want to be in the Asian Champions League and win that year upon year. And dominate the league, and dominate everything about all the competitions we're in. But the other side of it is, as I said before, trying to make sure that I'm doing my bit to develop football over here in the Middle East, and anything that I can to make people's lives better, for them to enjoy it more, to make them run around with a smile on their face, teach them something along the way, all of those things. But listen, we're employed to win football matches at the start of it, and as many football matches as I can win, that's what I want to do.
So for those that might be listening or watching this, Myles, they might be really interested in the project, and they might go, okay, this could be potentially where I want to be. However, I've got, commitments in the UK. I've got a family, I've got children. Does it accommodate, people such as that? Because what I get the impression of, and again, we're biased, and I can imagine we're similar age in terms of our development, but people might go, it's a job for a young person. It's a job for someone, who's free and can go and move abroad with no commitments. Is it accommodating in terms of maybe different types of individuals on their journey that might want to relocate to such area? I'm just interested on that as a project as a whole, because, we've talked about all these fantastic things, but, in terms of realism for people that might be watching or listening, I'm just interested in how that's accommodated, if it is at all.
Yeah, do you know what? I'm really glad you've asked the question, because, I can see people potentially thinking that as well. I think, look, let me give you some examples of that. So although I may not have as much commitments as other people with children and family and all the rest of it, I've got my partner, I've got our dog, which we wouldn't leave anywhere, and the club have been extremely accommodating in helping to sort her visa process to come here, to get the dog out here. We've got people in the men's game, international staff that are coming out here with families. There's players who I've been picking up the phone to who want to come out here, who've got families, and it's absolutely no issue. Children, husbands, whatever it may be. There's no issue whatsoever. So the answer is yes. Like, it is accommodating for everybody and anybody to come and be a part of this, should they wish to do it.
And do they support you in terms of, you mentioned your partner and your dog, but did they, was that supported with in terms of, having an opportunity to find employment in other areas from your girlfriend's perspective or your partner's perspective? I'm just interested on how that works, because obviously on the phone, you mentioned at the beginning in the negotiation, I bet all these things crossed your mind, right?
But yeah, no, as you said, right from the very first phone call, we had all these questions about Natalie moving, that we've got a dog. Is that going to be okay? Nothing's an issue. Nothing's an issue here. Like, yes, no problem, and we'll sort it. We'll make sure I remember they had conversations with Natalie, just one-on-one with Natalie, to ask any questions that she had around being a Western woman living in the country, and any questions that Western women might have, to make her feel at ease, to make her know that she's got the right picture. They went and seeked out, local veterinary clinics and helped with Natalie's visa process. And as I said, nothing is an issue. Nothing's hard work. Everything's okay. Everything will be done and sorted. And I think even, as I said, even the players that are looking to come here with children, whether they've got, husbands, wives, whatever it may be, it's absolutely fine. Like, it's fine. Well, the club will support you. As I said, Hire and Abdulaziz will support. They're unbelievable. And I know I'm not sat on this podcast saying anything to try and promote the club or the country, or I'm not reading off a script. And you alluded to it earlier, everything sounds great, and because it is, like it honestly, because it is, I think, like, I'd be more interested in entertaining if I had this big story, or this, like, something's happened that's really bad. Like, I haven't got that. I haven't got an instance of, or even a sniff of that. So it's a little bit boring in a sense. I do apologise to anyone listening, but everything is just really good here. It really is.
Yeah, it might be also as well, Myles, is that, especially UK, that kind of stiff upper lip outlook towards certain things, and there's a sense of arrogance maybe in the UK, that we think that we're better than everyone else. And then when you actually put yourself out your comfort zone and go to countries such as Saudi or other places, you actually recognise that there's a lot of downfalls to some of the things that are happening in the UK, and it's not as good as people think it is. But because you're stuck in that bubble and you're influenced by certain media or the things around, whatever it is that kind of enables that outlook to happen, you are, like you said, you're a bit naive, but also a bit arrogant to the fact that there is better opportunity out of the UK.
Yeah, I agree. And I think, listen, whilst I was in England, that a lot of colleagues and friends and stuff have gone and worked in America coaching, and I always said it's not for me. Like, England's the home of football, right? Or at least we like to think it is. And, it's one of the best countries in the world. Premier League is the best league in the world. WSL is one of the best leagues, if not the best league in the world. So we do a lot of things great. But yeah, I never thought I'd move abroad to work in football. But the fact that I've done it, I'm just so happy that I've made a good decision. And I think, I'll give you an example of what you just said. I went home at Christmas. After Christmas, I went home. On New Year's Eve, I flew home for a week. We had a bit of a break in the schedule. And listen, it might have been because of the time of year, because we know post-Christmas and January is an awful time. It's dark, the weather's terrible, everyone's skin. But being at home in England for a week, I was drained. I was honestly, like, not literally, but I was so depressed being there, because everyone just seemed so down, and something else had happened in Parliament, or the government were doing something else, or there was something else in the news that was depressing. And you look outside and it's raining and it's 4 p.m. but it's black, and everyone just, like, I was just like zapped of energy after being there for a week, because I was just like, I didn't know what was wrong with me. I couldn't figure it out. And then I realized when I got back to Jeddah, like, I was just drained of, like, all the, I don't know, whatever you want to call it, negativity, or just the way people were down. And listen, don't get me wrong, it's a rubbish time of year. That time of year, it is for everyone. But that's how I felt being back in England. And look, I've really hated on England this podcast. I really don't. I love it. We do a lot of stuff that's absolutely great in football, in everything. But what I'm trying to explain is, like, I was one of those people that always wanted to work in football in England and all the rest of it, and there's no better place. And actually, like, for me anyway, it's different for everybody, but for me anyway, this is unbelievable. Yeah.
Myles, I just want to say thank you for speaking to me today. Obviously, from our conversation, there's always that, and you mentioned this earlier, there's always that interest of what is going on in Saudi Arabia, what's going on with the Pro League, how is women's football being developed, and all these other societal issues that become a microcosm of what's happening within sport as a whole. So I just want to say thank you for opening up, and hopefully this gives others the opportunity to really explore that. And from a personal point of view as well, Myles, I just want to say credit to you for taking the jump, credit for you for putting yourself in those positions that have enabled you to have this opportunity. And I'm a fond believer of you create your own luck, and the experiences that you've had are only through your hard work and dedication. So I just want to wish you well. Hopefully there is trophies to come in that trophy cabinet, as you mentioned, but more importantly, good luck in the future, and all the best with the season and the forthcoming seasons.
That's very kind words. Thank you, mate. Appreciate it.